everyone. We are live. Welcome to the first ever
Gotta stall for a while.
Wine and Wills. I know we're having some people that are already having issues signing on, so we are gonna give it a few moments to get everybody in here. While we're doing that, here's the thing, it's Wine and Wills. So I want to encourage you to find your beverage of choice. Does it have to be wine? No. Me personally tonight though, I've got a nice red Merlot. The Velvet Devil is actually there we go, the kind that I chose. Basically, the weird Velvet Devil chaos in the world kind of seemed fitting for this evening tonight. But it's Wine and Will. So hopefully, if you have juice, wine, water, or even if you're just here to tune in and learn some things about estate planning, I want to do that for you. However, as a lawyer, I need to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I need to let you know that this evening is just going to be some general information. When I give seminars to people, I'll sit in front of a group of people, a room full of people, and I will give general information to people that could apply or may not apply to them. And that's just what it is tonight. I am going to cover a bunch of information. Some of it may be relevant to you, others maybe not so much. I'd love to answer questions if you have them. I can see it on my screen here. Feel free to comment, but just so you know, I'm not going to answer anything specific to you. So, for example, if anybody types in a question tonight and says, I want to know if my mom can, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to do that, but I will do that on an individual basis after this evening. Tonight's really just about learning. And I say that because right now we are in a time of chaos. We are. This COVID-19 thing, coronavirus, has got everybody turned upside down. And you know what? A lot of people are going on, living their lives, socializing. You do what you choose to do. But one thing that really touched me was when I got my first COVID-19 client. It was about a week ago. And I have to let you know that I still have not had actual contact with this person, but I've had contact with his family. I had his son reach out to me and say, Omni, we need help. My dad's in the hospital. He's in a coma. He's on a ventilator. He has a mortgage. He has bills. He has bank accounts, and there's nothing we can do. Help! Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I had to tell this person that there really was nothing I could do. Because that's one of the things about estate planning is that you have to be competent to do that. And that means understanding what you're doing. So when somebody's already in a coma, it is too little too late. What I was able to do for this person was assist them in drafting some documents that, perhaps when somebody does come out, they may wish to read, review, and sign in front of a notary. However, I can't go into the hospital to notarize anything, so that story is to be continued. But tonight I'm reaching out to all of you because one of the things that really concerns me is the whole idea of healthcare. All right, so frankly, in Minnesota, I don't know the audience I'm reaching out to tonight. I don't know your ages, but chances are some of you remember the situation that happened in Florida. Terry Schiavo. Her parents wanted to keep her alive. Her husband wanted to let her go. She lived for years and years and years on tubes and ventilators. Well, you know what? Guess what? In Minnesota, there is no priority for who gets to decide your health care if you can't decide for yourself. If your parents, your husband, your siblings, your children, if people disagree, chances are your wishes may or may not be met. However, who has thought to put things in writing? I know a lot of people out there are raising their hand and saying, yes, I want to be an organ donor, or no, I don't. People have had some of the little conversations about, I want to be buried or I want to be cremated. But what about some of those things in between? That's what I'm encouraging you guys to think about this evening. Is there anything in writing anywhere that says if something happens to me, here's who should get called and here's what I want? Now, I'm not saying it's organ donation. It's not just that. It is things like for the females out there. If something happens to me and I'm with child, what's more important, me or the child? There was a news story recently where a woman was in a coma with COVID-19 and gave birth. Oh my goodness. Wow. Scary. Yikes. And men, you don't need to worry about that. However, here's another weird scenario that I tend to throw out to people that you may not necessarily think about, and that has to do with pain. As we reach different stages in life, there are times when we encounter pain. And how do you feel about that? There are some people that I know that, oh my gosh, if they have a sliver in their hand, they're going to cry about it for days on end. It is the worst pain ever. There are other people where they could gash their hand open and they're like, nah, I don't care, put some duct tape on it, it's fine. But where are you? And more importantly, who in your life knows that? To go to an extreme measure, I say, hypothetically, something happens to you and you can't decide for yourself. You can't communicate. Where would you rather be? Would you rather be kind of in pain and okay to talk to family members, communicate, but be uncomfortable? Or would you rather be high as a kite and constipated? Because that's what could happen. Yeah, you never know. And that's why I encourage people, you know what? It's not easy to talk about these things. But right now, with what's going on today, it's conversations that need to be had. Or if not had, it is something where you need to reach out to loved ones and say, hey, you know what? If something ever happens to me, I've done planning. Here's where documents are located. I'm not saying you need to gather around the supper table or, a fire pit 6 feet apart, if that's what it needs to be to say, here's everything that's super important to me, because with everything, it could be awkward. But I'm just saying you need to let people know if you have done that planning. Because you know what? I've had people say, I've had surgery. So at my doctor, they have it on file. It's fine. Well, you know what? Nothing says that when and if something negative happens to you, you're going to be taken to that clinic. Because what we're seeing with COVID-19 is people are going to certain places that may not necessarily be within their clinic. And therefore, it's one where, you got to make sure it's out there somewhere and someone else has it. So that's one of those things. I do need to say, so I got a message in the background, one of them saying silence my phone. Sorry, but people are calling in with questions. Another one I have got to say is, if you want to reach out to me, and I will show this again later, but you can reach out to kickerlaw.com/contact or email jeff@kickerlaw.com, or you can direct message Kiecker Law on Facebook if you have a question as all of this goes on tonight. So there's our little commercial break for the evening, and now cheers. We have covered the healthcare directive. Congratulations, and enjoy a sip of wine. All right, so that's a healthcare directive. I will say there are various forms, different ones exist. Does it really matter which one you have? Yes and no. Because there are short forms which give people no information, but says, you know what? If something happens to me, call Bob. Guess what? Let Bob know what happens. I'm also going to tell you a true story about myself and my healthcare directive. I'm married. Both my parents are still alive. My healthcare directive says if something happens to me, call my husband, followed by call my father. My mom, mommy, I love you. I know you're watching this, but you're not on my healthcare directive. Because as your only child, I know that you would never, ever want something to happen to me before you. You'd rather brush my hair and flip me so I don't get bed sores. But I'd be kept in a coma, and that's not what I want. And that's why my mom isn't on my healthcare directive. So when filling out a healthcare directive, I encourage you, put people on there that will do what you want them to do. That's in your best interest. And the more direction you can give them, the better. So that's a healthcare directive. While you're alive, something happens to me. I can't make healthcare decisions for myself. Here's who to call. You know what? Guess what? It's also called a living will. So if somebody asks, do you have a living will? You're like, will? Healthcare directive? I don't know. The jargon can get confusing, but I encourage you, if it ever does, just reach out and ask. So that leads me into something else that I really want to encourage people to have, especially, this is another one. You don't need to have passed away to have it, and that is a durable financial power of attorney. Now, if you Google power of attorney, Dr. Google will bring you up a whole bunch of different forms, different options, like, ooh, sign here, pay this, pay that, blah, blah, blah. Minnesota even has a statutory short form power of attorney where you can check a whole bunch of options, A through M and N and all of the above, and give people all these wonderful powers. But you know what? If you don't know what you're signing, you just gave someone the license to rob you blind. We hear about it on the news yearly. It continues to happen. Somebody signs over a financial power of attorney to someone else. Now, granted, should that person do what's in their best interest? Yeah. Will they always do that? Maybe not. Could they get in trouble for it? Uh-huh. Will the family ever get the money back? Not a chance. So, let's talk about durable financial power of attorney. When can it be used? First of all, I do estate planning, but it's not just that. For example, when we sold our house, they changed the date of the closing on us 3 times. I kid you not. My husband took off work and took off work, and finally he's like, you know what? I'm not going to take off work anymore. Take the power of attorney. You go. I'm going to work because I don't know that they're going to show up this time either. So I did. And you know what, everyone? I try to be a really, really wonderful person, but I took that financial durable power of attorney and maybe I made them wait a minute or two and wonder if my husband was showing up before I brought it out, and I was able to sign on the closing of our house with that document. It's that powerful. I sold our house. Well, jeepers, it's a good thing he was on board with that because I did. However, it is that powerful. So I have done hours-long lectures on the financial power of attorney, but what it boils down to is don't list anyone that you don't trust to rob you blind, but won't, because that's what can happen. However, on the flip side, you're a solo person, you live alone, you have kids, maybe elderly, maybe not, maybe you just happen to trip and fall and break a hip and can't go home, so that lands you in a hospital. Well, have you ever thought, if something happens to me, who is going to be able to pay my mortgage or my credit card bills or my heat or my water or check my mail or go to the bank? Who can keep my life going if I can't? So that when I come home, I'm not coming home to an eviction notice broken pipes, and heaven forbid, Netflix and Hulu were cut off because you didn't pay those. Ugh. I mean, if you're in pain, you're going to want to be laid up watching TV sprees, as apparently everybody is doing now during this pandemic. So I'm just saying, it's not necessarily thinking about the morbid death of things that people should have a power of attorney, but it's also day-to-day things, and what if you could not be there to do them? Who could do it for you? Think about it, because yeah, people just can't. You might think, oh, my kids can go to the bank. Yeah, my kids can just go, they can get into my account. No. And for those of you out there that have a safety deposit box at the bank, I pose this question to you. Whose name is on that safety deposit box? Is it you? Is it you and your spouse? Is it you, your spouse, and someone else? The reason I ask is, even if someone knows where that key is, if their name is not on the signatory card, they cannot gain access to it without a court order. So there are people out there right now that say, I've had my documents, I have my will done, I've got my healthcare directive, and it's great, and I keep it all in the bank in my safety deposit box, but guess what? If your kids' names aren't on the box or your loved ones' names aren't on that box, they're still going to have to come to me as a lawyer to get documentation, to get a court order, to drill that box, to get access to those documents. What I'm trying to say is there needs to be follow through. Just having a document isn't enough, but again, you need to communicate with people where they are and how people can get access to them. Sorry, I was just taking a look at a question there. So I had a question about, well, what if I don't want to tell my kids? It came through like, what if I don't want to scare them? What if I don't want to tell my kids? It's still important to have those conversations. So, for example, I have clients that will have a safe in their house, perhaps a gun safe. Their kids don't want to have those awkward conversations that something might happen to mom or dad someday. But the parents can still reach out and tell those kids, hey, we have done planning. And even if you're not comfortable wanting to know what it is, that's okay. But if something ever happens to me, here's the combination to my gun safe where everything is located. It's giving them enough information that they can help without making them feel uncomfortable. No one really wants to do that. We're all kind of already in a state of unrest with everyone running around wearing masks and whatnot. Oh, so that, again, another topic done. Cheers. Let's all have a toast. And that brings me to the will. Does everybody need to have a will? Is it important to have a will? What good is a will? Does a will avoid probate? All very, very, very good questions. So let me start by answering the last one first. No. A will alone does not avoid probate. A will puts somebody in charge of your estate when you have passed away. That person is known as the personal representative, formerly known as the executor. Honestly, though, when I talk to people about it, I compare it to the personal attendant at a wedding, because guess what? The executor of the estate, the personal representative, the personal attendant, they get the crap jobs. They're not in the pictures, but they have a whole lot of work to do. The personal representative of your estate is going to be paying all your final medical bills. The personal representative of your estate is going to be talking to your creditors, credit card companies, student loan companies. The personal representative of your estate, at the end of the day, is essentially going to take everything you have, your whole life, and turn it into a spreadsheet. Pay the people that need to get paid, and ideally, eventually, possibly pass on money, things, items, stuff to the people that you've designated to get it. Sounds okay, right? Yeah. However, one minor detail. In order to do that, it is important that those items either have beneficiary designations on them, or there's a plan for them, or there's a way to transfer those items to that person so they can transfer it out. Otherwise, according to the laws of the state of Minnesota, items that are in your name, $75,000 or more, are going to have to go through probate. I said it. I said probate. It's a 4-letter word. I know. But really, people are like, why? What? The easiest way to say it is I have neighbors across the street. They're snowbirds. They will get up, leave, go to Florida, leave in November, come back later. Well, without the whole concept of probate, somebody could easily go over to their house early December and say, hey, guess what? These people are dead. I'm related to them. I'm selling their house. We don't want that. So probate is truly a process of proving up how you're related to the deceased and why you have authority, and making sure things go truly according to how the laws say they should. Now wait. Did anyone catch what I just said there? I said according to how the laws say they should, not how you want them. No. Probate is dictated by the laws. Things go to who the law says they should go to, not necessarily who you want. So for any parents out there that have young children, if something happened to the two of you, who would you want to raise your kids? Would you want it to be your fun-loving sister that has 3 kids of her own, runs a daycare, wonderful with children? Or, would you want it to be another relative that possibly doesn't have kids and never wanted to have kids, but guess what? On paper, they look really good according to the court. I learned after I became an attorney and had a chance to look at my parents' estate plan, that's where I would have gone. And I'm just like, oh, interesting. May have ended up in boarding school. Who knows? But thankfully, that did happen. What I'm saying is, if you have the opportunity to make a choice, please do. As parents of young kids, you can choose who your children go to in a will. As parents of young kids, you have the potential to say, you know what? I don't want my kids to inherit everything at the age of 18. I have a client, great person, wonderful. In his house, there is a stereo speaker with the plant on top of it. And I asked why. It's kind of awkward, right? Well, that stereo speaker is all he had left of his parents' estate. They passed when he was young. He got the money at age 18. He blew it all on random stuff, and that stereo speaker is all he has left. So he keeps it there to remind him of, this is why I don't want to be stupid about future expenses. So, again, a will, put someone in charge when you're done. Well, okay, now, what about a trust? That's a question I get a lot. Tonight's called Wine and Wills. Cheers. But let me talk a little bit about a trust. So, I wrote a book called Financially Caring for Your Disabled Child. And that book talks about one particular type of trust called a supplemental needs trust. If you want more information on that, you can message me. It's available on Amazon. It's a #1 bestseller within the state of Minnesota. But there are different reasons why a trust will and will be appropriate. I will say that there are attorneys out there that will suggest that everybody has a trust. They will say, you need a trust, and 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 guess what? Guess who makes more money off creating a trust? The attorney. I'm not like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think there are many reasons where a trust might be appropriate. For example, when talking about your estate, if the size of your estate is over a particular dollar amount, a trust is going to be right for you. If you're like me and have a special needs child, a trust is going to be the right choice for you. And I also have clients that, more than one, it's fantastic. I love it. They've come to me and they said, you know what, Omni? We love our kids. We gave them every opportunity in the world. We bought everything they ever wanted. We paid for college. We bought their houses, etc. And you know what? At the end of the day, they have flat out said, my kids are dumb. We enabled them too much, and we now need to make sure that they don't make bad decisions with what we're going to leave them. They need a trust. And then there's also the John and Jane Does of the world that want one just because their neighbor has one and they think it's the best thing in the world. Well, great. We can do a trust. But I will talk to you more about what a trust can and can't do if that's right for your situation, because something I have found, particularly in my local city of Belle Plaine, is there are people that have a trust. There are people that have worked with other attorneys in the past. They have this really nice thick red book. It's beautiful. It's got their name on the cover. But it does them no good because the trust wasn't appropriately funded and there's nothing in it. I'm trying to find as many of those people I can to help them fund the trust to make sure it does the work they should. So, at the end of the day, whether it's a will or a trust, when you look around your house, you have stuff, right? And to you, it's that. To you, it is stuff. If everything burns down and your family's okay, that's great. However, for example, other things, other items, other stuff. For, well, wedding rings, stained glass that my mom made me. I have 3 kids. Who's going to get it? Are they going to fight over it? I need to tell you that when people are grieving and when people are feeling pain, they don't necessarily want to fight with their sibling, but they're going to want to still express that, so they will fight over stuff. I have had the chance to negotiate a Santa Claus. I kid you not, light up outside Christmas Santa Claus. One Santa Claus, 2 people wanted it. One really wanted it. The other one just didn't want the other one to have it. I was about ready to take a chainsaw to Santa Claus because I knew it wasn't about the item, but it was about issues they needed to work through. In another instance, a gentleman passed away. He had 4 daughters and he had 3 rings. So we're sitting around the table and everybody starts out so Minnesota nice. You take one, you take one, you take one. And then at the end it turns into, who's going to fight over it? We don't want fighting. So it's easier and better if you decide. And that's one of the things a will and or a trust can do for you. And I really encourage you to leave different things to those that you love so that can happen. I will say one of the things that meant the most to me before I even knew it was a gift from my grandmother. She passed away when I was 12, but on my 29th birthday, I got this wrapped box. Dusty old wrapped box. I'm like, what in the world? But when I opened it, inside was my grandmother's golden wedding ring on my golden birthday. She knew she was passing of cancer when she was. She knew she wanted me to someday have the wedding ring. But the fact that she thought ahead so that I got it on my golden birthday was truly special. And that is one of the things that a will or a trust can do for you, is to leave things to those next generations. I did have another question just come in saying, how in the world are you doing this? You know what? We are all locked down. It's COVID-19. We're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. How? I'm doing this via a Facebook Live event. So how in the world do you practice law from your house, your office, when I'm in my house? A client I talked to today, 1 month old. Do you think they're going to let anybody into their house? Thank goodness for technology. Thank goodness for the opportunity to just get on the phone with someone and say, hey, I am going to send you some intake forms. I'm going to have you go through them. We're going to have a phone call. We're going to have a Zoom meeting. We're going to have a chat. And I'll be able to answer all your questions. Because, yeah, I'm not in your living room, but you can put your laptop, your iPad, your phone, whatever you want in your living room. And we can go from there. We can do an initial consultation pretty much live, not necessarily in person, and start creating an estate plan. We can go through drafting. We can do Zoom meetings. And in the end, there are many, many options that can be done to make this happen. One of the things I'm going to be honest with you, when this whole COVID-19 thing came up, I was like, oh my goodness, things are going to get busy. People are going to get scared. No. People have gone into it's not going to happen to me mode. I have a banner at my office for Halloween that says, you will die, get a will. Wanted to put it in the background. Nah, honestly, I just didn't get to it. But life is by nature fatal. We're born ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So I encourage you guys that are here watching live, hello, listening, asking questions, please follow through. When and if something happens, reach out and we will talk further. I have to say tonight was going to go for about an hour, but I have pretty much covered all the material that I wanted to talk. I wanted to leave time for questions, but I think the fact that I said I'm not going to answer personal individual things kind of tapered those a bit, because I am getting some coming through and I'm just like, hi, John or Jane Doe. That's an excellent question. I'll reach out to you when we're done with this, because I'm not going to answer it live on camera for the entire world. So again, thank you for tuning in. Wine and Wills, cheers. Have a wonderful evening, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Bye.